The ideal body is an illusion. Here's why you don't need it. Alright, let's jump straight into it. We live in a world where the ideal body is constantly being sold to us. Whether it's through advertisements, social media, movies, or fitness influencers, we're bombarded with images of what the perfect body should look like. And it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if I just had that body, I'd finally be happy. But let's pause for a second and ask ourselves, is that really true? Or is this so-called ideal body nothing more than an illusion, a false prize that keeps slipping further away, no matter how hard we chase it? Here's a deep question for you. Why do we let ourselves be enslaved by an idea that doesn't even have a fixed definition? What is it about human nature that makes us obsess over something so elusive, so uncertain? The truth is, we've been conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to our physical appearance. We've been taught to think that if we can just mold our bodies into the right shape, everything else will magically fall into place. But that's a dangerous lie. Let's break this down logically. If the ideal body is an illusion, if it's something that changes based on time, place, and social norms, then why do we invest so much of our energy chasing it? Why do we sacrifice our mental health, our happiness, and our well-being for something that's inherently unattainable? The answer is simple, because we've been led to believe that our value as individuals can be measured by how closely we align with this arbitrary standard. And that belief is incredibly harmful. Here's a reality check. You don't need the ideal body to be happy, to be loved, or to be successful. In fact, the very pursuit of this ideal often leads us further away from those things. Think about it. How many people do you know who have spent years obsessing over their appearance, only to feel just as insecure, even more insecure, once they've achieved their physical goals? That's because the problem isn't with their bodies. The problem lies in the mindset that tells them they're not enough as they are. And here's another thing: the idea that there's one perfect body type for everyone is not only false, it's deeply limiting. Human beings come in all shapes and sizes, and that diversity is what makes us unique. The notion that we should all aspire to look the same is not only unrealistic, but it robs us of our individuality. It reduces us to mere physical objects, as if our worth can be boiled down to how closely we resemble some idealized image.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Let me ask you this: what would happen if you stopped believing in the illusion of the ideal body? What if, instead of trying to mold yourself into someone else's version of perfection, you embraced your body as it is, flaws and all? I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't take care of ourselves or strive to be healthy. But there's a difference between taking care of your body and obsessing over its appearance. One is about self-love and respect. The other is about chasing an illusion that will never bring you lasting happiness. Here's where things get really interesting. Philosophically, the idea of the ideal body is tied to a much larger issue: the way we measure our self-worth. We've been conditioned to believe that our value is something external, that it's something we can achieve or acquire. Whether it's through physical appearance, wealth, status, or success, we've been taught that we're not enough as we are. But Alan Watts and many other philosophers would argue that this is fundamentally backwards. You are already enough. Your worth isn't something you need to earn or prove. It's intrinsic. It's part of who you are at your core. So, let me ask you, why do we keep trying to measure ourselves against an illusion? Why do we place so much importance on something that, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter nearly as much as we think it does? The truth is, the ideal body is a distraction. It keeps us focused on the surface, on the external, when real fulfillment comes from within. It's not about how you look, it's about how you feel about yourself. It's about learning to love and accept yourself, regardless of whether you fit some arbitrary standard of beauty. Self-worth beyond the mirror, why your value isn't skin deep. Alright, let's dive into this idea of self-worth. If the ideal body is an illusion, then where does our true value come from? For so long, we've been conditioned to believe that our worth is something outside of us, something we earn through our appearance, our achievements, or the approval of others. But what if I told you that your worth has nothing to do with any of that? What if I told you that your value is something much deeper, something that can't be measured by what you see in the mirror? Let's be real, society has done a fantastic job of convincing us that we're not enough as we are. Just look at how many industries thrive off our insecurities. The beauty industry, the fitness industry, social media influencers, they all profit from this underlying message that we need to be better, that we need to fix ourselves. And the result? We end up feeling like we're in a constant state of lack, always chasing after something that will make us feel worthy. But here's the truth: you are already enough. Your worth is intrinsic. It's not something you need to earn, and it's certainly not something that can be taken away based on how you look or what you achieve. This is where philosophy comes in and flips the script. Alan Watts talks about how we often live in an illusion where we believe that happiness, fulfillment, and self-worth are things we can chase, things we can acquire. But the reality is, they're already within us. We just need to stop looking outside of ourselves to realize that. Here's a deep question for you: what if you stop measuring your worth by external standards? What if, instead of basing your value on how closely you align with some arbitrary idea of beauty, you based it on something deeper, something that can't be seen but can be felt? Imagine what your life would be like if you didn't need anyone's approval or validation to feel good about yourself. If you didn't need to fit into a certain body type or achieve a specific goal to feel worthy. That's freedom. The problem is, we've been trained to believe that self-worth is transactional. We think, if I look a certain way, then I'll be valuable, or if I achieve this, then I'll be worthy of love and respect. But this mindset is toxic. It keeps us stuck in a never-ending cycle of seeking external validation, never feeling like we're enough. The truth is, your worth is something that can't be negotiated. It's not dependent on how others see you or even how you see yourself in the mirror. It's something that's woven into the very fabric of your being. Here's another question to reflect on: what would happen if you stopped comparing yourself to others? Comparison is one of the biggest traps we fall into. We look at other people, their bodies, their lives, their achievements, and we think, I'm not good enough because I don't have what they have. But this is where we go wrong. Every person is different, unique. And that's the whole point. Your value doesn't come from being like someone else. It comes from being uniquely you. Think about it: if everyone chased the same ideal body, the same standard of beauty, wouldn't the world be a pretty boring place? Diversity in body shapes, in appearances, in personalities is what makes us human. It's what makes life interesting. But when we buy into the illusion of the ideal body, we start to lose sight of that. We start to believe that there's only one way to be beautiful, only one way to be worthy. And that's simply not true. So, here's the takeaway: your value isn't skin deep. It's not something that can be measured by how you look, how much you weigh, or how perfectly you fit into society's standards. Your worth goes far beyond the surface. It's in how you treat others, how you live your life, how you express yourself, and how you contribute to the world. It's in your kindness, your creativity, your passions, and your authenticity. These are the things that truly matter. And the moment you start embracing that, the moment you stop trying to fit into someone else's idea of perfection, you'll realize that you don't need the ideal body to be worthy. Breaking free from the illusion, how letting go of perfection leads to true freedom. Now that we've explored the idea that your worth isn't tied to how you look, let's talk about what happens when you let go of the illusion of perfection. If there's one thing that keeps us trapped in this cycle of insecurity, it's the belief that perfection is something we can and should achieve. We see it everywhere: flawless bodies on social media, airbrushed images on magazine covers, and the constant message that somehow we're not quite enough. But here's the thing: perfection doesn't exist. It's a mirage that keeps moving further away the closer you get to it. Here's a deep question for you: what does perfection even mean? When we really think about it, perfection is subjective. What one person considers perfect might look entirely different to someone else. The idea of a perfect body, for instance, changes from culture to culture, from generation to generation. So why are we all chasing after a standard that isn't even fixed? The truth is, this illusion of perfection is designed to keep us dissatisfied, always striving, but never arriving. And that's exactly why letting go of it leads to freedom. Imagine what life would look like if you stopped trying to be perfect. If you gave yourself permission to be exactly as you are, without needing to prove anything to anyone. This is where true freedom begins, when you release yourself from the constant pressure to improve, to conform, to measure up. When you no longer need to look in the mirror and ask, "Am I enough?" because you already know that the answer is yes. Letting go of perfection doesn't mean you stop taking care of yourself or stop pursuing goals. It means you stop equating your worth with external standards. It means you stop looking at your body as something that needs to be fixed, and start seeing it for what it is: the vessel that allows you to experience life. When you stop obsessing over how your body looks and start appreciating what it does for you, you shift from a mindset of lack to one of gratitude. Here's something to think about: what would you do with all the energy you currently spend chasing perfection? How much more could you experience, create, and enjoy if you weren't constantly worried about whether you measure up? The moment you let go of the illusion of the ideal body, you open yourself up to a life of authenticity, of peace, and of real, lasting freedom. Embracing your true self, how self-acceptance changes everything. So now we arrive at the most powerful part of this journey: self-acceptance. If letting go of the illusion of perfection frees you from the endless chase, then embracing your true self is what allows you to discover real peace and fulfillment. Self-acceptance is the key that unlocks a life where you're no longer defined by external standards or superficial judgments. It's the realization that who you are right now, in this moment, is enough. But here's the thing: self-acceptance doesn't happen overnight. It requires years of conditioning that taught you to doubt your worth. It means challenging the voices in your head that tell you you're not thin enough, not muscular enough, not attractive enough. But the moment you start to question those voices, you begin to see them for what they are: lies. Lies that keep you disconnected from your true self. Here's a question to reflect on: what would it feel like to fully accept yourself without needing to change a single thing? Imagine waking up in the morning and not immediately criticizing your body, not comparing yourself to someone else, but simply appreciating all that you are. Imagine looking in the mirror and seeing yourself with kindness, with understanding, and with love. That's what self-acceptance looks like. And when you truly accept yourself, something incredible happens: you stop needing validation from the outside world. You stop seeking approval based on how you look, and you start living for yourself. You realize that your body doesn't need to fit some ideal to be worthy of love or respect. It's already worthy because it's yours. When you embrace this truth, you gain a level of confidence that no external judgment can shake. Self-acceptance also allows you to connect more deeply with others. Why? Because the less you judge yourself, the less you judge other people. You realize that everyone is struggling with their own insecurities, their own battles with the illusion of perfection. And when you accept yourself, you create space for others to do the same. You build relationships based on authenticity, not appearances. So here's the ultimate takeaway: you don't need the ideal body, because there's no such thing. What you need is to embrace the body you have, to love it for what it is, and to live your life from a place of self-acceptance. When you stop chasing the illusion, you find something far more valuable: true freedom, peace, and the unshakable knowledge that you are enough, just as you are. Think about it. We chase this idea of physical perfection, believing that it will bring us fulfillment, confidence, and a sense of worth. But here's the kicker: there's always something more to change. There's always a new trend, a new standard, a new ideal to live up to. This endless pursuit isn't just exhausting, it's fundamentally flawed. The reason? The ideal body doesn't actually exist. It's a moving target, a construct that's constantly shifting based on cultural trends, media influence, and societal expectations. What's considered the perfect body today could be completely undesirable tomorrow.